Hey everyone, this is The Common Thread, the official podcast of the Howard Thurman Center for Common Ground. I'm Amanda Dowd.
I'm Will Klepp.
I'm Howard DePass.
And we have a great show on today. We have the beautiful, talented Chelsea Roberts on of spoken word fame. Welcome, Chelsea.
Whoop.
Thank you.
Chelsea is fresh off of directing the Vagina Monologues this
Yes.
past weekend and decided to come down, so we're really grateful that you made the time for us. Thank
I'm
you.
glad that you asked me to participate.
Yeah, we're very excited. I've actually been trying to get Chelsea on for like a year. This is like true story, and we finally accomplished it, and it's like kind of exciting.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm ready. I'm ready to get started. It's going to be a great show.
So Chelsea is going to do a piece for us, one of her spoken word pieces, and she did write it herself. And then later, Howard's going to rap. We have tons of creative energy going on in here. But Chelsea, take it away whenever you're ready.
Okay, so this piece I actually did for an HIV/AIDS awareness event at Northeastern. They asked me to perform, and it was for their World's AIDS Week that they do a week long. So I wrote it, and it's called Craving. When I laid eyes on him that night, I have to admit, he was scrumptious. He wasn't cute or sexy, but he was a perfect personification of the word scrumptious, simply luscious. He was the perfect swirl of dark chocolate with peanut buttered eyes, succulent pink berried lips that bounced his words teetered off of them, and I wanted to sink my teeth into them, hoping they would ooze sweet juices that would coat the roof of my mouth. He was thick and tall, wide and ripe, with the perfume that would cause buttered sap to trickle down my anchor knees when he passed. Lean, wholesome, he was something. But I wasn't that simple. His sweet and light features weren't quite enough. I needed real substance, something that was meaty and heavy and savory, something so poignant that it would linger on my palate for days on end. And it was when he spoke that I realized it was the richness of his words that indulged me. Frequently, he would spend late nights dousing me in streams of conversation, dense revelations, smooth meditations, heavy contemplations, and I would just sit and listen, slowly intaking each word that dripped off of his tongue, marveling at how he harvested each thought, and all while sitting, he fed me, thought by thought, syllable by syllable, I swallowed whole. And it was then that I knew I had to have him. So that night we danced. And I mean danced all night long. And even though we were surrounded by others, it was as if it was just him and I, moving slowly, breathing closely, our bodies pressed against one another violently and untamed, each movement so controlled yet unrestrained, and I could smell our bodies roasting underneath one another's gaze, melting like thick caramel, slowly sizzling like brown buttered under a low flame, wild between four walls that encased our sweet aroma. The mixture of our sweat evaporating from our skin, the aroma of our bodies fainting as the orifices of the room gaped open. The music finally stopped. He leaned into my ear, put his hands on my lower back, and I trembled faintly. And through the noise, through people shuffling around us, he said, "Come with me." The irony. He pushed me through the door, with control but gently. I took routine as sincerity. Darkness surrounded us, nothing but the passing glint of headbeams on the highway outside his window, lighting our bodies for only seconds at a time. He guided me to his bed and laid me down slowly, and I wrapped myself around him. One by one, I unbuttoned his shirt, salivating at the firmness of his torso that I was sure would melt like rock candy in my mouth. He let me strip him bare until everything was laid before me ready. He leaned in close, and I smelled him heavy on my lips, sweet and tender, moist and creamy, and without caution, my stomach churning after him, I finally bit into him. Saliva glazed my lips with sugars just as I imagined they would night after night. His wet oohs and ahs slid down my throat, and for hours I swallowed him piece by piece, satisfying every hunger, relinquishing my thirst, and I was so mesmerized by the feeling that I didn't notice the toxins that slipped into me. Without caution, Without hesitation, I got so lost in the moment that I forgot to think. If I had taken a few short minutes to think, to ask, in the moment I thought everything was all good. After all, we had chemistry. He treated me differently, said he could only see himself with me. So for a few short minutes, I just wanted to be in ecstasy, so I consumed him carelessly. His pink-berry lips weren't bruised. I didn't taste the bitterness in his saliva. He was perfect. But looks are often deceiving. And for a craving, I gave him the permission to satisfy me, to infect me, to give me HIV. That's the end of it.
Wow.
That was awesome.
That was really good. Damn.
Dang, Chelsea.
Wow. I need like a second to digest that myself.
All right.
You know?
Thank
Please.
you so much.
So you wrote that a few months ago
Yes.
for World AIDS Day.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what made you take that direction with it? Like when they said write a piece.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of thought, I kind of tried to put myself in the place of most college students when we're kind of like in the moment, hot and heavy, and sometimes you get so caught up in your thoughts that you don't make rational decisions. So whether it be unsafe sex or whether it be, you know, getting so drunk or so blinded that you aren't making those decisions, those healthy decisions that you need to make. I just wanted to target those things. So thinking while still in the moment was my message.
Okay. Got it. And you performed this at Northeastern, you said?
Yeah, at Northeastern. They actually had a collaboration with their Face AIDS student group, as well as with their, I believe it was a fraternity. I do not want to get their name confused, so I'm
It's
not going
okay.
to say it. It was with a fraternity.
Okay. Okay.
What was if I can ask, what was like the response that you got like afterwards? I mean, you know, that's definitely a heavy topic. Like you're saying a lot of stuff. Like how do people react towards that?
I think the reaction most people got was just shock at the end because usually when you're trying to do spoken word or poetry, you want to bring the audience on this journey with you. And it's nice, for some poets, it's nice to kind of give them this complete headliner that they were not expecting at the end. So after I did it, you know, while I'm doing it, they're like, "Oh, this is sexy. Like this is a lot, you know, hot and heavy." But then at the end, it's like, wow, you know, sometimes we just get so caught up that we're not making healthy decisions. And I think it shocked them, which is what I tried to do, shock them at the end. Because when you get those, when you do go to the doctor the next day or you do something that you regret in the morning, it is a shocker. So I just wanted to create that emotion at the end of the piece.
I thought you did that really effectively with the way that you told the story of the poem. Like, it felt like there was pretty heavy use of foreshadowing in it.
Yeah.
And after having heard the poem, it's obvious to me where that was used. But, like, when you're actually listening to it for the first time and you don't have the context of HIV, it's totally unexpected and totally powerful. So
Exactly.
I thought that was cool.
Exactly. If you go back like a couple of stanzas before the end of the poem, you actually see this character of mine kind of saying, you know, one line is, "I took routine as sincerity." When he's, you know, telling her to come back to his place, she's taking that, oh, you know, he really likes me.
Yeah.
When he's kind of doing this to every girl. So you pick out those little small spots where you leave kind of clues, sorts of clues to lead on the audience. But at the end of the poem, they're like, oh, now I get that line. I didn't catch it before, but now I get it.
But at first glance, that line that's like, oh, you're in college and you guys kind of a player. Like, yeah, get it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a watermark of sleaziness among all those super sexy lines.
yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
So tell me, Chelsea, how did you get into spoken word? Did you grow up with it?
No.
Okay.
No, everyone thinks that, but I didn't. I was actually...
Because you're a vet. That's why everybody
No.
thinks that.
Because you're so good.
I've only been doing this since my senior year in high school.
Wow.
I
Oh
did
my
a
gosh.
talent show, and everyone was like, oh, you should do it. I'm like, really? I've always been a writer.
Okay.
Always been a fictional, creative, short story writer. But I think I started directing myself in a spoken word kind of poetic way was when I was originally a dancer, and I grew up dancing in church, going to rehearsals and whatnot, and I actually messed up my knees while dancing. I had to have surgery on both my knees, so I couldn't dance anymore. And I think that propelled me to try to find a different outlet. And I think spoken word was always that outlet, because I love to perform through dancing, so why not perform what I'm already good at, which is words.
Sure.
So kind of mix that.
Do you think that your writing of prose has affected your poetry? Because like I've done both of those forms of writing, and what I found is that my style entirely changes if I'm changing the way that I'm writing. So,
I do. I think the fact that I do creative short stories, I like to think of my poetry as non-traditional, because my poetry often lacks the framework that other poets kind of take. They kind of have like imagery and lots of metaphors and all these like allusions. And this poem is honestly the only poem that you will ever like hear metaphors or anything like that in my poetry, because in my creative short stories, my message has always been like realness and kind of like I want the audience to relate to what I'm saying. So in order for them to be able to relate, I need them to understand what it is I'm saying.
Right.
And metaphors can often be confusing if they're kind of thinking about it for a long time. And that's good, if you want the audience to take that message home with them and kind of dissect it or kind of think about it and what it actually meant. But because I want the audience to actually be on that journey with me while I'm doing spoken word, I kind of feel it's easier, at least for me, to make it so that they understand every single line. So my prose, because they were always like that, always relatable in that way, I kind of found that my poetry took on a story-like form as well. I'm gonna tell a story, and hopefully you'll be able to understand it and go on the journey with me, instead of a complex kind of storyline.
Well, speaking of what you put into your poetry, how much of yourself and your relationships and your friends and your family do you put into each poem?
That's a very good question. I find that my family and especially my upbringing comes up in every single
Really?
poem.
Wow. Yeah.
Really?
Every single poem.
Can you talk a little bit about that, like about what it is in your family and your upbringing that tends to manifest itself usually?
Definitely. So before coming to Boston University, I grew up in an urban neighborhood. I think it was about 74% of my high school was African American or minority in that way. So Boston University was a complete culture shock for me. And my first freshman year, to be very, very honest, I did not like it here at Boston University just because I couldn't find my place. I felt very intimidated, very threatened, and I didn't know how to function outside of what I already knew. So it was a very depressing, like my freshman year was a very depressing time for me. But I think what that created was this motivation to stay close to home, to always have my heart close to home, and to be able to grow as a human being and as an individual, but to still have that link and passion towards the things that I come from. So I try to incorporate that in every single poem, because I want people to know that you can come from something completely different from where you're at right now, and just because you're at a certain place doesn't mean that you've always been at that place. And I want to create an illustration of growth, of me coming to Boston University, bettering myself, and I can better myself but still be connected with that history. And I don't know, I love it. Definitely love it.
I understand.
I want to. I always have a bunch of questions for you, Chelsea. As just like a friend, as a fan,
No
and
fan.
and I like two questions real quick. Who inspires you? Number one, like, and it doesn't have to be a poet necessarily, but where do you draw your inspiration from, and how do you trigger like the passion and the emotion that comes along with your performances? Because I've seen I've seen you like on stage before, and like no lies, I've been touched.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're
Like
like,
it's exactly like I better take some moments to myself. So how do you exactly like trigger that emotion when you're performing, and like who inspires?
Okay. So who inspires me? It has, hands down, it's my parents, both my parents. The way my parents raised me, just growing up struggling, it was completely, they are my heroes. And every single time I do a piece, I think about what they would say in that piece. So there's probably like 2 or 3 lines in each piece that I have that I'm taking from my parents. You know, my parents said this, or when I was 5 or 7, and it's just their upbringing that I guess that's really shaped me, and I'm so appreciative of that I try to incorporate or embody them in every aspect that I can when it comes to my pieces. So I guess you can say that if you put all my pieces together, it would kind of be like a commemoration to them. Like I could like put it in a binder and like give it to them. This is for you, mom and dad. But yeah, it would definitely be them. As far as how I channel that emotion, it kind of goes back to what I said before about wanting a piece to be relatable to each and every person. So I find the subjects that are most difficult to say or to talk about, the subjects that are maybe make people uncomfortable, or we kind of keep in our closets and we don't really take out and you know, showcase to the public, are the ones that touch people the most. So I try to channel. I keep saying real, but that's what I like to call it, a real emotion. It's something that's not superficial. It's something that, you know, even if you can't empathize with me, you haven't been in my shoes, that because I'm feeling and because I've experienced and I'm expressing, whether it's sadness or happiness, I want you to feel that too. And besides, like I said, most of my subjects, I usually write about social issues, urban youth, socioeconomic issues and stuff like that. So I think those, especially with a specific audience, touch a lot of people just because they can relate. But yeah, I try.
Awesome.
I try to get a little tears going.
Yeah.
Work up a little tears.
Awesome.
I mean, you say you write a lot of this for your parents as a commemoration. How do they've heard you perform, I'm assuming.
A lot.
What do they say? What is their reaction?
They're very, very proud.
Aww.
They're very proud. Every single time. Of course, they're too modest to say that they've like raised a great human being, but it's all them. Like, I wish I could take the credit for just being just awesome.
Yeah.
I can't. It's all them. And I think at the end of the day, they're really secure about who they are as individuals as well. My success has really affirmed theirs. So I think it's great.
And correct me if I'm wrong, do you have 2 sisters?
I have 2 younger sisters.
Yeah.
One's 20, her name is Jasmine, and one's 16, her name's Brianna.
Do they ever work themselves into your pieces, or do you ever find yourself writing?
They do. My 20-year-old sister, I like to refer to her as my little big sister, because what's funny is that she was always a great like counselor in relationships, and I didn't start getting into relationships till like my senior year in high school. I was like, boys, not into it. But she was always there, and she would always counsel me, like, you know, you should do this, go out with this person, like, no, don't wear that, you should, let me get your outfits and stuff like that. So she's always been like my little big sister, and whenever I find myself writing a piece about relationships, it's always lessons directed from her. You know, you should let him open the door, and you know, don't call him first. Things like that. You know, like she would teach me that. And as far as my little sister, I think what I've learned from her is how to hustle. So whenever I'm thinking about I'm serious. I appreciate that. That quality of learning, of knowing how to get what you want without being as direct. And so whenever I'm talking about just, I don't want manipulation has a negative connotation. I'm going to say that. Strategic things, I'm referring to her. So
Okay. Got it.
Do you still
But
get
yeah.
nervous? Do you ever get nervous when you?
every single time.
Really?
Every single time. If you catch me backstage before I'm gonna perform, I'm shaking, my mouth's dry. When I tell everyone every single time, it's when I get on stage and the mic's in my hand, it's as if I'm not even there. Like I feel it's like an outer body experience, and I feel like the words, if most of the time, I know this is bad to say, but I memorize stuff like the day before, and I'll get on stage and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna miss a line, but it's as if the words are just right in front of me, as if someone's holding up the words and they're kind of just like passing. And I honestly, I don't feel like I'm even there. I feel like I just go and I do it, and it's an experience, and then I walk off stage, and then all the nerves are completely gone.
So, out of curiosity, what sorts of Boston venues have you performed?
Okay, I've. Dang, this is a lot. So my
Let
first,
me pull out my list.
my first performance was at the Umoja Fashion Show. It was my freshman year. That was the piece about intimidation that I did about. It was basically focusing on just how scared I was freshman year coming to this place, and at first I was seeing this place as something that was negative. I didn't want to be here, and I thought that I was better. I thought that I had better use at home, but it was just realizing that I needed to be here. So that was my first one. I believe I perform at a lot of Umoja events. So their Kwanzaa event, their Black History Month program, like I said, their fashion show. I perform at 4 or 5 Northeastern events. They do like cafes and whatnot. They've done specific events for their fraternities, like Crimson, and they do like after parties. World's AIDS Day, and most recently I performed at the Martin Luther King Jr. commemoration at Boston University.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I do a lot of events that aren't centered necessarily around poetry. They're kind of like showcases or fashion shows that need performers in the middle.
Is that intentional, or like, what's your strategy, I guess?
Oh, no. Honestly, I just get asked. It's like, oh, we're having this event. I'm like, okay, I'm coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
works.
it's the spoken word world. Say that 3
Sounds
times
like a
fast.
theme park.
Is the spoken word world kind of just word of mouth? People and
Yeah, it completely is. Most people, Boston's so small. It's so small.
smaller than people outside of Boston realize. I didn't realize how small it was
Me
until I
either.
came here.
Oh God, it's so small. So usually, if I perform once, right after that a performance, in the middle of the event, somebody come up to me and give me their email and get in contact with me that way. But yeah, it's word of mouth, and honestly, I only perform when someone asks me to perform. I don't necessarily just like go to events and
Yeah.
yeah. So I find that most of my poems are centered around a specific theme for a certain event, which is kind of ironic, because if you think about most writers or poets, it's such an outlet for them that they do it on a daily basis or every couple of days because they love it so much. I do love poetry and I do love spoken word, but I'm not a daily person about it. I'm kind of just like a sporadic event person about it.
It's kind of a Renaissance approach. Like,
Really?
you get like a patron to convince you to write about something, and then you write about that, and then like it serves
And
the
then I
purpose
wait
of
for
that
the
event,
next
Are you
and move
supposed
on.
to get paid for that?
Yes.
the Renaissance,
You
yeah.
should speak about it. I've been doing this for
Somebody-
3 years in Boston. People
Somebody
know
needs to
that I
cough
do
up
it.
some money.
I'm pretty sure you could totally get paid for it. I feel there was when I was in DC last winter for the HTC social justice. I can't talk today, you guys.
No problem.
Do you know Busboys and Poets?
No.
Have you heard of it? Okay, if any of you are ever in DC, you have to go there. It's this combination like independent cafe / bookstore / bar / they have like a room set up with a stage specifically for people to perform, and spoken word is like the thing.
Wow.
And it's run as like a very socially conscious fashion. It's the best place ever. But there was a young woman there who performed, and that's her job. She's a spoken word poet. She just goes she had a press card. She goes around. She performs.
Oh.
Look into it, Chelsea, right?
Yeah,
Read my career path. I don't need
Forget
a
this
degree.
calm.
I don't need a degree.
Well, how much preparation does go into each piece? I mean, as you said that you memorize it the day before, but when you're writing it, how long does it take?
When I'm writing it, when I'm writing it, if I want a really good piece, sometimes I just do whatever. But if I want a really good piece, it takes me about 2 weeks.
Okay.
I know that the first draft that I write is not the piece that I'm performing. It's kind of just like a brainstorming activity. But I'll write an entire piece and be like, oh, that's horrible. Getting rid of that. I might keep 2 or 3 lines from that piece, and that's it. But it's actually, it takes a while. As far as memorizing goes, I'm really good at memorizing things. So that might take a day or 2, hopefully, if I have enough time. But actually constructing the piece takes a couple of days.
So how do you? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So how do you know when to stop? And not only when to stop writing the actual poem, but when to stop editing it and revising it.
When I get to the day before the event,
when I have no more time.
Exactly.
When I have no more time to write, then it stops. No, but actually, it goes back to the short story. Kind of just writing prose. I kind of like to think of poetry as just you have your conflict, you have your resolution, you have your ending type of thing. So whenever I get to the end of that arc is when I stop it.
So even though it can look very spontaneous, it's not.
No.
Because I remember, this is how ignorant I was when I first saw spoken word for the first time. I was like, oh, so they just make it up and they go on stage.
It's that easy.
No.
Naive Amanda.
Some people tell me to do stuff on the spot, but because I'll memorize a poem and I'll know it for a week, but then I'll forget about it, and they're like, oh, do that piece about, and I'm like, look, I need a couple of hours, let me just look at the piece. It doesn't happen like that. You have to sit down and think about it. I wish I can come up with stuff off the dome like Howie here, but
No.
but that's not how it goes, unfortunately.
Well, speaking of Howard, you have a rap for us, don't you?
I do.
So let me just say that neither Will nor myself know what he's going to rap about, so we're just as surprised as you guys.
All right, thank you. So this piece is just a freestyle I wrote not a long time ago, but fairly long. No particular topic, just me, putting my thoughts on paper. Listen, I do this for my mother and my father. Full ride to college, big ups to my posse scholars. Huge workload, but I don't want to be bothered. Don't even have a Twitter. Funny how I want to be followed. These haters mad cause I came up out of thin air. I'm skinny coming for the throne, call me the thin air. If you in my way, I'll take you out. I don't play fair. If dogs go to heaven, tell them angels they should beware. Lord, forgive me cause I'm trying to change. And my heart's pure, hope my mind is the same. Thoughts keep me up at night, hope my mind ain't insane. I just hope the work I'm doing doesn't happen in vain, because I put my all into this mic just to take my pain away. And hold my head high just to take the shame away. Try not to struggle, so I try to take the strain away. Praying to God that he won't never take the fame away. Can't even call it fame yet, I got a way to go. My friends say, Howie, you did your thing, way to go. Feel like I'm at a red light, I can't wait to go. I'm like someone who's overweight, waiting for the wait to go. I'm dying for hip-hop to live, a fatal attraction. Hoping people see my words line up with my actions. They say I'm real cause I never like the thought of acting. I love my passion, not a fan of those who slacken. Like deadbeat dads trying to get their kids presents. What's the value of your presence without your physical presence? Taking mediocrity, accept inferiority, fighting over custody like it's racial equality. And then they wonder why I'm upset. Going through security, they thinking I'm a suspect. Life was full of change, no room for cash, credit, or checks. Living for today, hope tomorrow's coming up next. So I'ma take it one day at a time. Might change my name to Optimus, cause I'm in my prime. Making bold statements, hoping my print is defined. Put your shades on, cause I'm getting ready to shine. Hold up, I'm about to blow up, just like a landmine. Taking everything I see, all this land's mine. The lone soldier, yeah, I'm standing on the front line. Loving this forever, rapping till you hear a flat line.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Oh my God. So, obviously the inspiration. That's your life, right? You're like posse scholar,
right. Yeah, it's very autobiographical in a sense,
Yeah.
you know, like from the opening lines, like doing it for my parents, you know, giving a shout out to like my scholarship foundation and my posse, like the reason why I'm here at BU,
Yeah.
to, you know, like some of the struggles I go through, like, and what I think of on a daily basis, you know, it was a lot of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question that may be ignorant, but I don't know that much about rap.
Mm.
You said before you started that it was a freestyle that you wrote a while ago.
Right.
So my understanding was that freestyle is like on the fly. You just
Right.
make it up. So is that something you made up on the fly and then like it hasn't really changed since then? Or I guess how does that work?
So yeah, so you're absolutely right. Like freestyling in its purest and truest form is just off the top of the head, but like it's sort of transformed almost over time to, you know, you could like write a verse and however long it will be, and it's not really meant to go into a song. It's not really it doesn't really have any main topic, and so that in and of itself could be called a freestyle. It would just be a written one as opposed to a regular spontaneous one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but 9 times out of 10, like when you hear the term freestyle, it is actually off the top of the head. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like sort of a hybrid niche between normal slam poetry and like
Yeah.
rap with beats.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I probably sound pretty ridiculous.
No, that's perfect. You got it.
So, set the scene for me with this
Mhm.
piece. Was this something where you were like, you know what, I'm gonna rap about where I come from,
Right.
or was it? Did somebody say something to you that inspired it? Like, what happened?
I think with this particular one, it was, I don't know, every now and then I get into these grooves almost, like, and I might not have written something for a while, and I can like feel almost that like it's time, you know, like I need to, right, like I need to put something together, and so this, I don't even think that anyone like called on me to write something or anything of that nature. I think I came up with like one line or one or two lines, and from then it just became the verse that it is, you know. So yeah, it really worked out like that, but it wasn't organized in any particular way. It wasn't called for to be to touch on any particular topic. It was just, it really, you know, sort of me just venting almost, you know, or like I said, sort of putting my thoughts down on paper. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. The lines about absent fathers kind of stuck out to me. What made you put that in there?
So that one came about. I thought about that line like randomly one day, and so often what will happen is I'll just think about like these different lines, and like I'm very, very interested in like how to play with words and how to use one word and like break it up and make it sound like two separate words even though it's one, and how to make, you know, things rhyme in between. Like it's very intricate for me. So I remember the day like I came up with that line, and deadbeat dads trying to get their kids presents. What's the value of your presence without your physical presence? And I remember like sending it to my brother, like, "Yo, look at what I," you know what I mean? It's like, right,
Greatness,
right. and I held on to it, like I put it in my phone, like wrote it down or something, and I was like, I have to figure out how I'm gonna get this like in something that I write. And so this just happened to be perfect in sort of a piece that's you know, honest and sort of brash and aggressive in a sense. And I feel like that was the perfect line to put in there. And so, but to talk about why I said it to begin with, you know, it is something I feel like occurs. You know, I feel like sometimes fathers aren't there for their children, but want to still be around for the birthdays or the Christmases, but that's not as meaningful as showing up every day, you know, because material things can only last for so long, you know. But it's the upbringing that matters the most. So
Yeah, definitely. Oh my god. You said that you said that line to your brother.
yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about him and your family and everything like
sure,
that?
yeah.
Because I mean, you said it's for your parents.
Right. So my brother has definitely been like one of my biggest support systems. He has been with me since day one. So like a lot of times when I write, like he'll be like the first one to hear it, or one of the first people to hear it. So I just thought he'd like it, and so I sent it to him.
Does he rap?
He doesn't. He doesn't rap, but
Aw.
he's man, like he loves the entire hip hop culture, and he loves like hearing me rap. Like when I last year I was on Greg's radio show.
Yeah.
And and right.
Greg.
And shouts out to Greg.
Greg.
Aw, we
And,
miss you, Greg.
Yeah, and he tuned in, and even called in. You know what I'm saying? And so he's just always been supportive, as has my other sisters, and my mom actually is very supportive as well. To my surprise, you can probably tell in my voice, because for a long time I sort of kept this from my parents.
Really?
And yeah, absolutely. Like I really, like when I first started, I sort of kept this from my parents. My dad was like never really big on hip hop. Like my parents are Jamaican, and so
Okay.
he's like, when he thought of rap, it would almost be like the really vulgar, like misogynistic type of hip hop, but not the conscious truth telling, storytelling type of rap that I love. And so I didn't want them to find out, so I would like go to school and like rap with my friends and write stuff all the time and like keep my rap book in my room and like hide it. You know what I mean? Like, but I would never tell them. And so it wasn't actually until a few years ago when like I said it like in front of everybody, and everyone from my mom to my aunts and uncles to my cousins were just like, yo, like, when did you start doing all this? And I was like, it's been a long time coming. Yeah.
How long exactly? Like, how old were you when you started?
I wrote my first rap when I was 8.
Wow, when you
Yeah.
were
That's
8.
incredible. I wrote
my
Do you
first rap
remember
when I was-
what it was about?
It was it was something ridiculous, man. Like, it was I think it was called like I'm the bomb or something like that. Like,
Typical.
like, right?
Typical
Like, it was definitely we just writing about me, like how I thought I was fly at the time, like nothing of substance.
Still a little fly, still a little fly.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I've been doing it since I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is kind of like an artsy question, but when you started writing, rap, even when you were 8, was it because you admired certain rappers and wanted to emulate them, or was it more just the words and phrases kind of came together in your head and you started writing them down?
That's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. I like one of my fondest memories and probably one of my earliest memories of rap is hearing Nas's "You Can Hate Me Now," and like my brother actually had that album, and like I remember like hearing the song and like seeing the video and like being in elementary school, like, and being around kids who also sort of love that same kind of music and love that same kind of culture, maybe want to like memorize the words and so on and so forth. And I think that that had a lot to do with it. And even at the time, like, I think one of the main reasons why I sort of like wanted to start writing and see what I could do is because when I started writing, that's when Bow Wow just came on the scene, right? And if y'all remember,
We're
Bow
back
Wow
to
was
the
like
90s.
11 years old, like
Yeah.
when he first like
was
came out
very
with like an
young.
album and like a video and everything. And I was like, yo, if he's like 11, I'm 8.
I had 3 whole years to make it.
I was like, dude, like, I have time. You know what I'm saying? So like, to be honest, like that was
2
one of
years.
right. Like that was one of the first times I was like, you can do this from so early on. You know what I'm saying? Like you can craft it from when you're so young. So
Did
like,
it work? Did you get signed?
I wish, man. Trust me. I wish, but like, I think a lot of people gravitated towards it, and I think that in and of itself like gives me a lot of satisfaction and also humility, because it's awesome. It's awesome.
Would you still like to be like maybe?
Shoot, if an opportunity were to come, you can best believe that I would not run from it.
Right.
Right?
That's we gotta get both of you in business for real. If any agents
I
are
would-
listening.
I would
Yeah.
not shy, man.
Howie and I actually did a collaboration.
I remember
Were
that
you-
at
Yes,
MCW.
Were you there? Yeah.
I was gonna say
Collaboration.
when you guys were joking around before, I'm like, this is not the first time they performed together. I
No,
remember
no.
that.
No, and
yeah.
it definitely will not be the last.
How does that work? Do
No.
you guys like play off each other when you're speaking, or do you just like write in conjunction? Or How
we
does that work?
write separately
Mhm.
pieces. Well, at least for this particular piece that we did, we were instructed by Miss Kennedy to actually form a piece that invited students that kind of talked about the college experience from freshman year to senior year and telling both of our stories as a male and as a female and how those are completely different stories. So we wrote separately and we kind of picked parts that we wanted to intersect. And it came together so beautifully.
And,
It was shocking
cool.
to see how.
It was. Man, I wish I could remember the 3 themes. I think I know one was.
I remember religion being part of it.
Yeah,
it was a
religion.
bunch of stuff.
It was a whole. I know we talked about 3 things that you needed to have in college.
One was balance.
Balance.
Um,
I think it was organization. Was it
yeah.
organization?
Yeah, it was like something along those lines. And a third one, but I mean, like she said, we basically put together these 3 themes and for this overarching like college experience, and I wrote mine, she wrote hers, and then day after day, like we would meet up and like sort of just
Practice.
Yeah.
And it was to a beat, so it was kind of it was very. I think it was very intriguing for the audience to see how these 2 art forms came together, while Howie was doing something was basically rapping to a beat, and I was doing spoken word, but it wasn't to the beat.
Right.
It kind of gave you this illustration of how both art forms are very different, because a lot of people think that they are similar in a lot of ways, but at the same time, one's more dependent on music, whereas the other one is more like a flow.
That's really cool. That is not a thing, honestly, that I'd ever really thought about before tonight, but hearing both of you go back to back, I think one of the most noticeable differences was like the really heavy rhythmic quality of Howard's, and then the more like sing-songy, like English romantic type rhythm of yours.
Absolutely.
And you could actually see that with the piece while we were performing, how I would have to be mindful of where I dropped my last sentence, because I know that he has to come on the beat. So while I'm just talking over music, because he has to come on the beat, I have to make sure that I end before the beat
That
comes
was
on.
taking a lot of rehearsal.
It took
It
it took a
Sounds
did.
so hard.
Wow.
Yeah,
if I didn't come on the beat, how you just have to fill it out like
right. And
word.
I'm gonna go with it.
Word.
It's a good
Exactly.
thing he
Yeah.
likes freestyling. It probably helps,
Exactly.
like-
Yeah, and
But you actually rapped without a beat just now. Like you just kind of had to go. I could see you moving, like you had it going in your head. But I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, I can't beatbox.
Right.
Right. It occurred to me suddenly.
This is DJ Amanda.
Yeah, right. I've tried. I really can't.
Look,
I know other people who can. It's like a goal of mine. We'll work on it.
we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it one day.
Right? Can you beatbox? Not bad.
The girl got some skills over here.
I thought that was great. I thought that was
I thought
Yeah,
it was
drop
good. It's
slam
way better than I
poetry.
did.
Beatboxer.
I thought it was great.
Perfect.
I do have one last question for you, Howard. Chelsea talks about how she uses themes of, socioeconomic status and social issues in her work a lot, and growing up in an urban environment, your family. What would you say are the top things that inspire you that you like to rap about?
Wow. Top things I think that inspire me are honestly things I go through, and I don't say that in a like a self glorifying way, but stuff that I go through, because I know that though sometimes when we go through problems and we go through struggles, trials, and tribulations, we like to feel like we're the only ones who go through them. We like to feel alone. There's always somebody else who can relate to what it is you're saying and what it is you're talking about. So I think that fuels me a lot. What the problems I may go through academically, through my college life, or like going back home and trying to be there for like my mom and my sister, like be it physically be there, or like financially and not having the means to do so, or like whatever the case is. I just know that at some point throughout my rap, like hopefully there's gonna be somebody who can be like, yeah, like I understand that, I understand what that's like, I've been through that, or I'm going through the same thing. yeah, and so a lot of times it's spontaneous. Seldom do I pick a topic, and this is actually something that I've been doing a lot more lately, like trying to practice it. But seldom do I actually pick a topic and then write about what it is, like write about that topic, you know, for like a whole song. But a lot of times it'll just be spontaneous, and by the end of the song, I'll know what it is instead of choosing the topic first.
That's great.
Wow. Well, we have to wrap up. We're kind of at that point, but I'm loving tonight's episode.
Yeah, that was amazing, both of you.
Thank you.
I want
Thank
to.
you.
I want to rap. I want to. It doesn't come naturally to me though. I don't have, like the.
But you do have something. We all have something.
Right,
Aw.
Amanda has a little freestyle talent y'all don't know about.
It's hidden deep inside.
Next week on The Common Thread, Amanda Dowd.
I'll work on bringing it. Actually, speaking of next week on The Common Thread, are we going to tell them the topic? Should we make it like a regular thing that we give them a preview of next week's topic? Do we want to do that? Do we want to tease them?
Do we trust them?
I trust. Do we trust? I trust them.
I think you trust them.
Yeah, I think so.
Give them a little taste.
Yeah. Who said? Did you say it last time?
I said it last time.
Do you want to do it this time? Do you want to give them the? Do you want?
Yeah, I can let them know. So I'm sure that all of you have heard of the gender-neutral housing debate that's been going on campus. There's been a pretty big push behind it. So next week we'll be focusing on that. So
Woohoo!
that'll be good with all the controversy surrounding it.
You know it.
That's gonna be good stuff.
Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for coming on performing.
Thank you guys.
Phenomenal
You guys
job.
are awesome.
Oh
I need
my
to come
God.
back more often.
You
Absolutely.
do. Preferably more
Please.
than once a year.
I just want to come
maybe.
back and just sit and enjoy the show.
Oh, you are welcome
Anytime.
anytime.
As long as you
Yeah.
rap for it, or excuse me, speak words for
Yeah,
us.
I can.
Oh
We're gonna
man.
make her speak for her
Howard
supper.
and I can
Right?
switch places. He can do spoken word,
Oh.
and I can rap.
Wow.
That would be fun.
When
if
she
we
That
said
would-
did
no,
switch
ab-
places,
that
I
would
thought
be
she meant like
absolutely.
you could just get rid of Howie and I'll be you. I'm like, well then.
Yeah. So Howard, we need to talk.
Right. No longer gonna be a host. Chelsea is actually.
Chelsea's elbowed you out. I mean,
Special
hey,
guest next week,
That
Howard.
would be
Y'all are down for the
something.
challenge. I would love to see you rap and you do spoken word.
That
You
would
wanna
be
switch?
great.
I'm not opposed, man.
Should that be
That
like?
would be
Maybe that
great.
should be the goal for the semester?
Okay.
You guys
I
want to
think
maybe?
so. I take that on. You take that on.
I'll take that on,
I take it
definitely.
on.
And suddenly we have another episode.
Score.
Just like that. Just like
Well, thank you so much again for coming on. And Howard, thank you for rapping.
You're
You're
welcome.
awesome.
For being
You're welcome.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
right?
you. Thank
Can we
you.
make it a regular thing that you just rap all the time?
I mean,
You can
Possibly?
open up the
Every
show.
now and
You guys can come up with your own common thread show
I
theme
have been
song.
thinking about that for
Yeah.
the longest
Oh, that'd be
time.
amazing.
And I feel like now it's
Yeah.
like a little bit more of a reality possibility. We'll talk. We'll talk.
Maybe we
We'll
can
talk
get that.
later.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. You guys are going to have to wait for that. Sorry, we're
Hey.
going to cut off the recording soon. Well, thank you all for listening. This is The Common Thread, the official podcast of the Howard Thurman Center. I'm Amanda Dowd,
I'm Will Clapp.
I'm Howard DePass Jr.
and we'll see you next week.